Alone cold. The first thing he felt when he opened his eyes was this: a cold so intense it penetrated to his bones. The air was thick with mist, and when he looked around, he saw everything covered by a white blanket. As he tried to lift his head, a sharp pain shot through it, causing him to groan. What had happened? The last thing he remembered was the turbulence on the plane, causing panic. A sudden storm had hit, and the pilots lost control. A scream followed by the sound of metal breaking apart. And now here he was, trying to understand that he was still alive, in some unknown place. He looked around. The shattered plane fuselage was a few meters away. Metal parts were embedded in the snow, burned and deformed. Smoke was still rising from some parts of the wreckage. He shouted. No one answered. He was alone. Instincts kicked in. He was an ex-soldier trained in survival. But this place was different. In the middle of the snow, perhaps miles away from civilization, he was isolated. The first thing he needed to do was stay warm. He checked his hands. His fingers were numb but still responsive. Worse still, his left boot was missing. His foot was sinking into the snow, and the cold seemed to reach straight to his bones. He started searching the wreckage. He had to find something useful: food, water, clothes, and shelter. When he found the rear of the plane, his stomach turned. Corpses, some still strapped to their seats. Unknown faces frozen in expressions of terror. He turned away. He had to stay calm. This wasn't a battlefield, but it was a front where he had to survive. He found a bag. Inside were some energy bars and a water bottle. Wrapping himself in a blanket he found among the wreckage, he tried to protect himself from the cold. But he knew this wouldn't be enough. If he spent the night here, he could freeze to death. He had a big decision to make: stay here and wait for help, or move forward and search for a chance of rescue. The plane had crashed in a mountainous area. That much was clear. In the mountains, air traffic was low. If no one was looking for him, no one would find him. He stood up and looked into the endless white and began walking. Hours passed. The cold intensified. His vision was blurry through the ice that had formed on his eyelashes. In the distance, he saw rocky, snow-covered ground. If he could reach there, maybe he could find a cave. But with every step, his body grew heavier, exhaustion and hunger draining his strength. Finally, he collapsed to his knees. His breath was heavy. His fingers were no longer responding. The howling wind echoed in his ears. He knew this was where it would end. He lifted his head to the sky. Snowflakes fell on his face as his mind began to fade. He took out his Bible from his bag, and the pages trembled in the wind. He whispered a prayer for the last time. When he closed his eyes, he wasn't cold anymore. He felt a warmth in the midst of the endless white. A smile appeared on his face, and then silence.